Welcome, listeners. I'm Silas, your sleepy storyteller, pulling you down the rabbit hole of time, where dreams and memories intertwine. If you enjoy these videos, please tap the like button. It really helps. Also, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can keep drifting along on your sleepy journey through history. And before we wander down the rabbit hole, share your city and time in the comments. I love imagining our journey threading through every ticking clock. Now, take a moment to find a comfortable resting position. Close your eyes gently, and in your own time, allow yourself to sink into the quiet atmosphere of the past as we begin our slow journey together. The road rises from the Campanian plain, glistening faintly with dew as the morning sun wrestles with veils of thin, drifting cloud. My sandals scuff the basalt paving stones, their grooves carved by countless cartwheels. Behind me, the Bay of Naples gleams with deceptive serenity, the surface broken only by the white flecks of fishing boats. Ahead, the walls of Pompeii climb above fields of olive and grape, their stones dark against the shadow of Mount Vesuvius. The mountain looms, vast and watchful. Though its slopes seem quiet, a faint haze leaks from its crown, easily mistaken by some for ordinary mist. Yet those who live in its shadow have felt its restlessness. Tremors shaking tiles loose, springs running muddy, even animals fleeing the fields. A few families have departed already, clutching bundles, seeking safety inland. But most remain. Habit, faith, and disbelief bind them to their city. Pompeii, after all, is thriving. It is a jewel of Roman life, a city of over 10,000, bustling with trade, worship, and leisure. Why abandon it for a whisper of danger in the distance? I approach the Porta Marina, the sea gate. Its broad arch, weathered but proud, funnels travelers into the city. Today, it hums with life. Merchants lead mules burdened with amphorae. Fishermen trudge past with baskets of still glittering catch. Freedmen call to porters to hurry along. The chatter of voices, Latin, Oscan, even Greek, fills the air, mingling with the smell of salted fish, olive oil, and dust. The gate itself is scarred but sturdy. Centuries of feet have hollowed shallow grooves into its threshold. Children dart between legs, laughing as they chase one another, only to be shooed aside by a vendor balancing jars of garum, the pungent sauce Pompeii exports across the empire. I pause at the arch and glance back. The bay glitters beyond warehouses, its light soft and golden. None here imagine it will soon darken beneath clouds of ash. For now, the gate is not a tomb, but a passage into vibrancy. Beyond the gate, the Via Marina stretches inward, paved in heavy stone. Shops line either side, their counters jutting into the street. Dolia, great earthen jars, sink into the counters, brimming with olives, nuts, or wine. Vendors call to passers-by, each competing to be heard. At one stall, figs are arranged in neat pyramids, their skins shining like amethyst. A woman weighs them carefully before slipping them into her basket. A boy tugs at her sleeve, coins clutched in his fist, begging for honeyed nuts from the stall next door. The vendor grins, scoops a small handful, and drops them into the boy's palm. His laughter ripples into the street. Farther on, a baker slides round loaves from a stone oven. Their crusts are stamped with marks to show ownership, a guarantee to customers who left grain with him earlier in the week. The scent of warm bread clings to the morning air, drawing neighbors like moths. A slave shoulders a tray, stacked with rolls, heading for one of the villas uphill. Life here moves in rhythm, ordinary, unhurried, unaware that the sky is about to change forever. I remind myself, this is not some forgotten outpost, but a city rich in Roman comforts. Pompeii boasts heated public baths, temples to Jupiter and Venus, theaters where plays and gladiatorial games draw thousands. Its villas gleam with frescoes of myth and marble courtyards lined with fountains. Even in these shops, one can glimpse the prosperity. Amphorae filled with imported spices, bolts of dyed cloth, and the chatter of freedmen haggling like seasoned businessmen. Yet beneath the hum lies tension. A shopkeeper glances up at the mountain's haze, his brow briefly furrowing before he returns to his scales. A fisherman mutters that his dog would not enter the boat this morning. A woman whispers of the tremors last week, her voice quickly hushed by a friend urging her not to spread fear. The signs are there, but the city moves forward, unwilling to surrender its pulse to dread. The Via Marina bends, revealing a fountain at the corner. Water trickles from a carved spout, splashing into a stone basin worn smooth. Neighbors gather here daily, filling clay jars, pausing to gossip. Today is no different. A woman balances a jug on her hip while speaking with a man about the rising price of olives. Children splash their hands in the basin, squealing until scolded. I lean against the fountain, listening. The conversations circle around the mundane, harvests, debts, small feuds, yet always return to the mountain. It is nothing, one man insists. Vesuvius has smoked before. Another frowns, murmuring about a dark cloud he saw yesterday. The debate is gentle, almost casual, the kind of talk people use when they want to reassure themselves as much as each other. No one knows that within hours, this fountain will stand dry, its water buried under ash. The circles, etched at its base by resting jars, will become faint shadows and dust. The voices will vanish, leaving only silence. I glance again at Vesuvius. Its crown is obscured, a column of pale vapor drifting upward. To many here, it seems like little more than cloud, perhaps even a curiosity. They cannot imagine that within hours, this vapor will split into fury, that pumice will rain down in relentless torrents, crushing roofs and choking lungs. The first phase of the eruption will not come like a single blow, but like a ceaseless storm, testing patience and trust. Families will huddle inside, believing stone walls will protect them. Others will venture out, seeking escape, only to find streets filling like rivers of ash. It will not be fire that first claims them, but suffocation, weight, and the betrayal of ordinary shelters. The fountain gurgles beside me, a quiet heartbeat of the city. Around it, Pompeii bustles, unaware that this sound is one of its last breaths. The road narrows as it climbs deeper into Pompeii. Beyond the curve lie the Forum baths, where citizens now gather, steaming in warm pools, trading jokes and gossip. Their voices echo against marble walls, even as the mountain looms overhead. Leisure continues, proof of humanity's refusal to yield to fear. I take one last look back at the fountain and the row of shops. Children laugh, vendors shout, neighbors debate. Life carries on, fragile and fleeting, poised on the knife edge of catastrophe. And so I step onward, deeper into the city, where the rhythm of daily life thrums louder, unaware that its final cadence is about to fall silent. The street narrows as I move deeper into Pompeii. Ash from the mountain's crown has not yet begun to fall in earnest, though faint particles drift on the air, so fine they could be mistaken for dust kicked up by passing carts. The city hums with a deceptive calm. Vendors call out from doorways, and the shuffle of sandals echoes off the paving stones. Somewhere, a dog barks. Life goes on, pulsing against the shadow of the volcano. Ahead rises the Forum Baths, one of the grandest public buildings in Pompeii. Its brick and stone facade towers above me, columns framing its entryway with stern symmetry. People stream in and out, some with towels draped over shoulders, others freshly anointed with oil, skin gleaming in the light. The baths are not merely a place for washing. They are the social heart of the city. Politicians meet their clients here. Merchants strike deals in the caldarium. Philosophers debate as steam curls around them. Today, the rhythm continues as if the world has not shifted. Yet I notice glances flicking to the sky, where Vesuvius broods, wreathed in haze. A murmur of unease coils beneath the chatter, but habit is stronger. For Romans, routine is its own anchor. I step through the doorway into the tepidarium. The air wraps close and warm, carrying the mingled scents of olive oil, damp stone, and sweat. Light filters through high windows, soft and golden, glinting off the patterned tiles of the floor. Men recline on benches, their voices carrying an easy conversation. Two argue about the grain tax, gesturing broadly with dripping hands. Another discusses a new shipment of garum arriving from Hispania, while an older man tells a story of Nero's downfall, his voice booming with theatrical relish. Slaves move silently between them, offering strigils to scrape oil and dirt from skin. The rasp of metal against flesh mixes with the low murmur of voices, punctuated by bursts of laughter. In the corner, a boy grinds herbs into oil, releasing sharp, green scents into the air. There is no fear here, only the timeless rituals of Roman life, the hum of community within marble walls. And yet, I wonder, did any of them sense it? Did the faint shiver of the ground beneath their feet whisper louder than their conversations? Did the haze in the sky taste bitter when drawn into the lungs? Further inside, the caldarium pulses with heat. The air is thick, steaming, clinging to the skin. Water in the pool gleams dark and still, disturbed only by the slow movements of bathers sinking into its depths. A man sighs as he eases into the water, tilting his head back to let warmth soak into his body. Another leans against the marble lip, his eyes half closed as if he could dissolve into the steam itself. Around them, voices drift, softer here, slowed by the heat. Discussions blur into murmurs, like the whisper of waves against stone. Above, the ceiling arches like the belly of a cavern, its plaster painted with scenes of myth. Apollo chases Daphne, Hercules battles his labors, gods and mortals locked in eternal struggle. Their stories peer down from the vault as men soak below, their lives as ordinary and fragile as those painted figures are eternal. I stand at the edge, listening. A single drop of water falls from the ceiling, breaking the surface with a faint ripple. For an instant, the sound seems louder than it should, echoing like a warning. Then the laughter of a bather swallows it whole, and the rhythm of life resumes. I step back into the frigidarium, where cold water shocks the skin after steam. Here the marble gleams bright, its pools sparkling. Young men splash each other, their cries echoing against stone. A father urges his son forward, the boy's teeth chattering as he plunges reluctantly into the cold. The sound is sharp and joyful, an energy that defies the weight of the mountain overhead. For a moment, it feels like eternity could live here, that the baths, with their marble and mosaics, their echoes of laughter and argument, might endure forever. But I know what comes. Soon, these waters will be choked with ash, their ripples sealed into silence. Exiting the baths, I find myself in the Palaestra, the great exercise ground enclosed by colonnades. The courtyard stretches wide, its earth packed hard by countless feet. Today, it thrums with activity. Men wrestle in the dust, their bodies glistening, muscles straining as they grapple. Others hurl discus, their arms cutting sharp arcs through the air. A group of boys runs laps along the perimeter, their shouts mingling with the crack of a whip as a trainer urges them faster. Spectators lean against the columns, shaded by the colonnade. Merchants watch as they sip watered wine. Slaves linger while awaiting errands. And elders sit discussing politics while their sons and grandsons sweat in the arena. The air smells of dust, oil, and human effort. I pause to watch a pair of wrestlers locked together, their movements raw and primal. The crowd cheers as one slams the other to the ground, raising his arms in victory. For them, this is ordinary entertainment. For me, standing with the knowledge of what comes, it feels like a farewell performance. The final exertion before silence falls. Here, the fullness of Pompeii beats strongest. The baths and Palaestra are not just about cleanliness or exercise. They are about belonging. Citizens come to see and be seen, to debate, to forge ties, to indulge in leisure. This is a city at its peak, brimming with energy and confidence. And yet, beneath the noise, I sense fragility. I recall what history records, that the eruption came in two phases. First, the long rain of pumice and ash, collapsing roofs, suffocating lungs. Then, the pyroclastic flows, torrents of fire and gas racing down the slopes, killing instantly all who remained. Looking at the wrestlers, the bathers, the gossiping elders, it is difficult to imagine that within hours, many will be ash and void, their final poses frozen in plaster centuries later. But that is what makes this moment so piercing. Pompeii is alive, utterly alive, on the brink of death. The palestra fades behind me as I continue along the colonnade. Ahead lies the Forum, where temples rise in grandeur and merchants gather in the shadow of Jupiter. For now, it too bustles with life, dealings, prayers, arguments. But the mountain looms above it, its crown wreathed in cloud, waiting to split open the sky. I glance back once more at the baths. Steam curls upward. Voices echo. Bodies move in rhythm. It is the heartbeat of a city. Steady, strong, unaware that its pulse is counted in hours. And so I step onward, toward the Forum, where the weight of Roman power and the fragility of human life will converge beneath Vesuvius's gaze. The colonnaded walk of the Palaestra fades behind me as I follow the curve of the street toward the heart of Pompeii. Ahead, the city opens into its greatest space. The Forum, the center of politics, commerce, and worship. It is here, in this broad square, framed by temples and public buildings, that Pompeii's soul is most visible. Today, that soul still thrums with activity, unknowing that the mountain above will soon extinguish its voice. The passageway narrows, then bursts into brilliance. The Forum spreads wide before me, its paving stones worn by centuries of footsteps. Columns rise in neat ranks, some marble bright, others weathered and cracked, but together forming an avenue of power. At the far end, the Temple of Jupiter commands the view, its steps rising high, its columns proud against the looming shadow of Vesuvius. The square is alive with noise. Merchants set up their stalls in neat lines, displaying bolts of dyed cloth, amphorae of oil, baskets of figs, and bronze trinkets gleaming in the sun. Voices clash in a dozen tongues, Latin, Oscan, Greek, merging into a single symphony of trade. A magistrate, robes trimmed with purple, strides across the Forum with attendants in tow, his hand gesturing broadly as he debates with another official. Their words ripple across the square, carrying fragments of politics, taxes, laws, the grain supply. The business of the city continues as if eternity were promised. I pause at a row of market tables. A woman sells bread, still warm from the oven, its crust scored deep, its scent filling the air with comfort. Children tug at their mother's tunics, begging for honeyed cakes. A young man bargains loudly for olives, while beside him a freedman argues over the price of imported wine. Coins clink. Sellers shout. A donkey brays as it pulls a cart through the crowd. The hum is ordinary, yet its ordinariness is fragile. The faint dust drifting in the air goes unnoticed, brushed away as though it were nothing more than the residue of a busy marketplace. No one looks up to the mountain. No one considers that the world might change before the bread cools. At the Forum's center stand statues of statesmen and benefactors, their marble faces serene. One honors a wealthy patron who funded Pompeii's amphitheater. Another, a magistrate who restored the baths after an earthquake years earlier. The citizens pass them daily, sometimes pausing to nod, more often ignoring them as background to their errands. Yet today, the statues seem to watch more closely. The ash drifting faintly from the sky clings to their shoulders, dulling their gleam as if even stone can sense what flesh denies. I wonder if any passerby noticed the way the light dimmed slightly, the sun's rays struggling against the veil of the mountain. Or did they keep their eyes fixed downward, unwilling to read omens written in the sky? I climbed the steps toward the Temple of Jupiter, each block of tufa stone solid underfoot. From here, the forum spreads wide below me, alive with its bustle. Beyond it rises the mountain, immense, silent, smudged at its peak by drifting clouds that are not clouds at all. Within the temple, the statue of Jupiter towers, carved in stern majesty. His gaze is forward, his hand lifted in authority, as though even the gods bend to his decree. Citizens kneel at the altar, offering prayers, sprinkling grain, pouring wine into shallow bowls. The scent of incense drifts thick, curling in the air, clinging to robes and hair. A priest chants softly, his words measured, invoking protection for the city. His voice carries just enough to mingle with the sounds outside, the bark of a vendor, the cry of a child, the bray of a donkey. Faith and commerce, side by side, each woven into the daily fabric. Standing at the temple, I imagine Pompeii as it was in these final hours, unaware, yet so full of life. Citizens debated politics at the forum's edge. Merchants traded goods brought from every corner of the empire. Farmers unloaded grain, their mules sweating under the weight. Children darted between legs, playing games as their parents bartered. Pompeii was no provincial village. It was a thriving Roman city of over 10,000. It had theaters that staged Greek comedies, baths heated by elaborate hippocausts, temples gilded with offerings, and villas adorned with mosaics. Its people were artisans, slaves, freedmen, citizens, soldiers, priests. They woke each day to the same rhythms: bread baked, markets filled, prayers spoken. And that is what makes this moment piercing. For all their wealth, their culture, their connection to empire, they could not see that Vesuvius was not merely a mountain, but a knife held above them. The warning tremors, the animals fleeing, the strange plume in the sky, these were signs ignored, or rationalized, or endured. Life continued, because it always had. From the steps of Jupiter's temple, I gaze once more at the mountain. It looms vast and indifferent. Its slopes green with vineyards, its crown blurred by haze. To the people in the square, it is a familiar guardian, a backdrop to their lives. Yet to me, knowing what comes, it is a shadow already descending. The eruption will strike in two phases. First, the rain of pumice and ash, falling for hours, crushing roofs and suffocating those who linger indoors. Then, the pyroclastic flows, searing avalanches of gas and stone racing down the slopes, killing all they touch in an instant. By tomorrow, this square will be silent. The bread will lie uneaten, the coins scattered, the statues dusted not with ash, but with grief. But in this moment, no one sees. A merchant counts his profits. A priest burns incense. A child chases a pigeon across the paving stones. Life clings, fierce and oblivious. I step down from the temple into the square once more. A woman, hurries past with a basket of figs, their skins glistening purple in the sun. A group of young men argue over dice, their voices sharp with laughter. An old man leans against a column, wiping sweat from his brow as he listens to a storyteller weave a tale of Hercules. They live as if they have endless tomorrows. And perhaps that is the greatest tragedy, that death was not expected, that disaster did not announce itself in ways they could accept. Their ordinary gestures, the laugh, the bargain, the prayer, become unbearable to witness, knowing how soon they will be stilled. The forum stretches behind me now, its echoes fading as I walk toward Pompeii's other sanctuaries. The Temple of Apollo, the Temple of Venus, the streets lined with homes both modest and grand. Each will carry the same weight of ordinary life, each silenced in its own way. I glance back once more at the forum, at the statue of Jupiter presiding over the square, at the people who bow their heads in prayer, or haggle for bread, or gossip in the colonnade. All is vibrant, alive, fragile. The mountain waits, and they do not see. And so I step forward, deeper into the city, where temples whisper of gods and homes hold the voices of families. The shadow of Vesuvius lengthens, though no one yet feels its full weight. The narrow street from the forum curves gently, leading me into the sacred quarter of Pompeii. Here, the gods preside. Their temples rise above the chatter of the market and the dust of commerce, their stones older than memory, their altars worn smooth by centuries of hands. If the forum was the beating heart of civic life, this district is its soul, where mortals looked upward to find favor and protection. Today, the air still carries prayers, incense, and whispered offerings. Yet the mountain's shadow stretches across the marble, silent and unheeded. The first great sanctuary I encounter is the Temple of Apollo. Its columns stand proud though weathered, flanking a courtyard open to the sky. A bronze statue of Apollo himself, bow drawn taut, aims eternally toward the horizon, as if forever prepared to defend the city. The god of prophecy and light, of healing and the arts, has long been honored here. His gaze seems fixed not on mortals, but on the dark crown of Vesuvius. The courtyard bustles. Vendors sell small terracotta figurines to pilgrims, miniature Apollos, little household gods meant to bless hearths and protect journeys. A mother hands a coin to her son, who clutches his figurine close as though holding the god himself. Priests in flowing robes move slowly between worshippers, accepting offerings of grain, figs, and wine. They murmur prayers as incense coils into the air, its sweet smoke mingling with the fainter sulfur drifting from the mountain. Few notice the sting in their throats. Children run along the temple's steps, their sandals slapping stone, their laughter ringing against the columns. Lovers linger in the shade of the portico, whispering promises that feel eternal. A poet sits cross-legged, scratching lines into a wax tablet, pausing now and again to glance at the god's statue for inspiration. The temple breathes with life, each gesture mundane, yet steeped in devotion. Within the sanctuary, the marble floor gleams faintly under shafts of filtered light. Oil lamps flicker at the base of Apollo's altar, their flames steady despite the faint tremor that rattles one of the bronze vessels. The sound goes unnoticed, folded into the rhythm of ritual. Worshippers kneel, bowing their heads as a priest intones words of blessing. The people pray for health, for prosperity, for children, for love. They ask Apollo to illuminate their path, to shield them from misfortune, to steady their steps in uncertain times. The irony is sharp. They pray for protection, while the very earth beneath them stirs with death. Yet none recognize the mountain as the answer to their prayers. The storm already forming, the fate already decided. I step back into the courtyard, watching how the sun struggles through a veil of haze. A faint gray dust drifts downward, soft as snow, settling on the shoulders of statues and the hair of children. Some brush it away without thought. Others glance upward, frown briefly, then return to their business. The warning is subtle enough to be dismissed, its menace cloaked in familiarity. For decades, Pompeii has known tremors. Earthquakes rattled walls years before. The citizens rebuilt. Smoke sometimes rose from the mountain. The vineyards grew regardless. Life continued. Why should today be any different? That complacency is the tragedy. Faith in permanence when the world is already breaking. From Apollo's sanctuary, I make my way toward the southern edge of the city, where the Temple of Venus commands its view over the Bay of Naples. The streets narrow, then open again, and suddenly the goddess's domain unfolds before me. The temple is grand, though still bearing scars from the great earthquake of 62 AD. Columns lean, stones are patched, scaffolding clings to parts left unrepaired. Yet Venus, patroness of Pompeii, still reigns. Her marble form stands tall, carved in serene beauty, her gaze cast toward the sea where fishermen's boats drift faintly in the haze. Here, the atmosphere is softer than Apollo's martial air. Devotion is gentler, more intimate. Women lay garlands of flowers at the altar. Men place offerings of coins or perfume. Couples kneel together, whispering prayers for fertility, for harmony, for enduring love. The goddess's presence feels tender, enveloping, a contrast to the looming mountain beyond. From the terrace of Venus's temple, the view of the Bay of Naples is breathtaking. The water gleams silver, though dimmed beneath drifting ash. Ships move slowly in the distance, fishermen casting nets, traders guiding their cargo. To the Pompeians here, it is a scene of reassurance. The bay has always been their lifeline, their path to trade, their promise of plenty. Yet even from here, the bay is tinged with foreboding. The faint haze of ash drifts over its surface, and the horizon seems blurred, uncertain. Some pause at the terrace rail to comment on the strangeness of the light, but laughter soon follows, and attention returns to Venus's altar. Life asserts itself against unease. I close my eyes and imagine the full rhythm of this sacred space before the eruption. Fishermen prayed here for safe voyages. Brides laid offerings for fruitful marriages. Merchants dedicated gifts in thanks for successful journeys. The temple was not only a place of divine worship, but a thread woven into every ordinary life. To visit Venus was to ensure that beauty, fertility, and fortune might grace one's household. Today, that thread continues, vibrant and unbroken. A girl ties a garland of roses at the goddess's feet. A priest sprinkles wine across the altar, the liquid dark against pale stone. A child claps her hands at the sight of a dove fluttering across the terrace. The ordinariness is almost painful to witness, knowing how soon it will vanish. As I linger near the temple's edge, I hear laughter, prayers, promises. The air smells of flowers and wine, of incense, and the faintest trace of sulfur. The people carry on, unaware that their last offerings are being made, their final prayers spoken. I mourn them not for their deaths alone, but for the unknowing, the innocence of living without seeing the shadow that has already fallen. Their gestures are tender, their faith sincere, their joy unguarded. And it is that very unguardedness that makes the tragedy unbearable. From here, the path will draw me into Pompeii's private world, the homes of its people, from modest dwellings to lavish villas. Within those walls, frescoes gleam with painted gardens, mosaics shimmer beneath lamplight, and families gather for meals or rest. Each home holds its own story, its own silence awaiting the mountain's roar. I take one last look from Venus's terrace, where the goddess gazes toward the sea, her marble face unchanging. Below her, the city still bustles, alive and unaware. And above it all, Vesuvius waits, silent, immense, patient. I step away from the temple, deeper into the city's veins, where hearths still glow and voices still rise, and where the shadow lengthens with each passing breath. Leaving the temples behind, I walk deeper into the private heart of Pompeii. The great civic and sacred spaces are magnificent, but it is in the homes that the pulse of life truly beats, where families gather, where laughter and quarrels rise, where art blossoms on walls, and where ordinary gestures mark the rhythm of days. Today, those gestures continue, as vivid as ever, even as the shadow of the mountain lengthens unseen. I first pass modest dwellings along the narrower streets. These are the homes of artisans, bakers, and freedmen, their walls close to the street, their courtyards small but filled with warmth. Laundry hangs between balconies, fluttering faintly in the breeze. A woman leans from her doorway, calling for her children, who chase one another through the dust with wooden hoops. Their shouts echo between walls, oblivious to the faint grit that drifts down from the mountain's plume above. Inside one house, a man kneels at a workbench, repairing sandals. The sharp scent of leather and glue hangs in the air. His wife hums softly as she kneads dough for bread, flour dusting her hands. She pauses only to glance at the small household shrine in the corner, offering a silent prayer to the lares for protection. To them, today is no different than yesterday. As I move closer to the city's heart, the houses grow larger, their facades grander. Here, wealthy families display their status in painted walls, marble thresholds, and wide atria where water glimmers in central pools. Through open doors, I glimpse frescoes alive with color, mythological scenes of gods and heroes, gardens painted with such skill that birds seem poised to take flight. Servants move briskly through these homes, carrying trays of fruit and pitchers of wine. Children play knucklebones in shaded corners. A matron reclines on a couch as her maid braids her hair, preparing her for a gathering later in the day. Outside, her husband greets a client at the doorway, their voices low and formal in the ritual of patron and supplicant. The hum of daily Roman life vibrates in these homes, each gesture polished by centuries of tradition, and yet ash already falls lightly onto rooftops, unnoticed by those inside, who trust that the gods will shield them from danger. It is here that the contrast strikes most deeply. Pompeii in 79 AD was not a place waiting to die. It was a city thriving in full bloom. The population of over 10,000 bustled with ambition. Merchants grew wealthy on trade. Farmers brought in olives and grapes from fertile volcanic soil. Patrons sponsored games, feasts, and building projects to display their influence. Even the scars of the great earthquake 17 years before had not halted Pompeii's rhythm. Homes were rebuilt, temples patched, theaters reopened. For the people of this city, Vesuvius was a neighbor, not a threat, a mountain that rumbled but gave back fertile fields and sweet wines. The idea that it might one day end their world seemed unthinkable. At last, the road leads me beyond the city's edge, where the famed Villa of the Mysteries lies among vineyards. The path curves gently, flanked by stone walls, now half lost beneath drifting ash. Then the villa rises, a sprawling estate, elegant and commanding, with colonnaded courtyards and terraced views of the bay beyond. This villa is famed for its frescoes, hidden within the triclinium, a chamber where guests recline to feast. I step into the painted room, and the walls come alive with figures nearly life-sized. Women in flowing robes, musicians, and dancers swirl across the plaster. Most striking are the enigmatic rites depicted here, scenes that scholars will later debate as Dionysian mysteries, secret initiations into the cult of Bacchus. By lamplight, the frescoes glow as though animated. A woman recoils in fear. Another bears her back for ritual scourging, while elsewhere a figure cradles a lyre, eyes dreamy with inspiration. The scenes blur the line between myth and mortal, between worship and theater. Today, the villa is alive with activity. Slaves hurry through courtyards, bearing trays of wine and figs. Guests recline on couches, debating politics, reciting lines of Virgil, or simply enjoying the bounty of their host. The laughter of women rises above the low hum of conversation, punctuated by the splash of water from a fountain in the atrium. Children play hide and seek among the columns, giggling as they dart between frescoed walls. In the kitchens, cooks stir stews and roast meats, the aromas of garlic and herbs drifting through the villa. The household is a portrait of wealth and refinement, a microcosm of Roman luxury at its height. And yet, outside the villa's walls, the mountain looms. Its plume curls higher into the sky, a pine-shaped column broadening at the top. Fine ash drifts onto vineyards, coating the grapes in pale dust. Servants brush it away with irritation, muttering about the inconvenience. Few stop to wonder what it means. The signs are there. The tremors, the fleeing animals, the strange stillness of the air. But life is too vibrant, too immediate, to surrender to fear. Why leave feasts and frescoes for uncertainty on the road? Why abandon hearth and fortune for shadows? So the villa remains alive with its guests, unaware that this day will be their last. I pause in the painted triclinium, gazing at the figures frozen on the walls. They seem almost prophetic now, women recoiling, men in ecstasy, rites of transformation and endings. Did the Pompeians ever suspect what they painted? Did they sense that mystery and death walk hand in hand? I think of those who will soon fall here, suffocated as the air thickens, their lungs seared by invisible fire. Their laughter will end mid-breath. Their feast will turn to silence. And centuries later, archaeologists will find their bones among the frescoes, wondering at the lives they once lived. From the villa's grandeur, the path bends toward Pompeii's outskirts, where gardens stretch, where fountains once flowed, where flowers perfumed the air. In those gardens, some will take refuge as the ash falls heavier. There, Fiorelli's plaster casts will one day reveal whole families huddled together, their final embrace preserved for eternity. The walk is not yet ended. The story of Pompeii unfolds with every step, from its bustling gates to its temples, from its markets to its villas. Each space is alive in this moment, yet already claimed by ash and memory. I step forward, leaving behind the painted mysteries of the villa, carrying with me their silent warnings. Ahead lies the garden, where life's final gestures will be sealed in stone. The path bends away from the frescoed chambers of the Villa of the Mysteries and spills outward into the gardens. The air changes here. Within the walls of the villa, life still hummed with feasts and laughter, but in the gardens there is quiet, softer, slower, as though the earth itself holds its breath. It is the stillness of early morning, yet tinged with something more, a weight pressing down upon the leaves and soil, as though nature senses what the people cannot. Before the eruption, these gardens flourished with vines heavy with grapes, roses climbing trellises, and fruit trees stretching their branches toward the sun. Statues of marble and bronze stood among them, watching over the ordered beds. Water trickled gently from fountains, filling shallow basins where birds came to drink. Families strolled these paths after meals, savoring the cool shade and perfumed air. Even now, on this day just before disaster, the garden is alive. Children run between columns, chasing one another with shrieks of delight. A young boy plucks a fig from a tree, laughing as his sister scolds him for eating before breakfast. Slaves sweep the paths, their brooms stirring up little clouds of ash that drift back to earth, noticed but ignored. A matron pauses near a fountain, lifting her veil to breathe in the coolness. To her, this is another ordinary day. Yet, as I walk deeper, I cannot help but notice how the ash has already begun to weave itself into the garden's fabric. A thin film dulls the green of leaves. The air tastes faintly metallic, sulphurous, though the breeze carries with it the sweetness of grapevines and herbs. Overhead, the plume of Vesuvius still climbs, a pillar stretching skyward. But here, among laughter and murmuring fountains, its menace feels strangely distant. This is the tragedy of Pompeii. the unawareness, the faith that life's ordinary rhythms would continue. Even as omens multiplied, quakes rattling walls, animals fleeing, a sky stained with unnatural color, many still lingered, unwilling to surrender home and hearth. These gardens, so full of life, would soon become places of last refuge, where families huddled together as ash piled higher, waiting for mercy that never came. I pause beside a small shrine tucked into the corner of the garden wall. Its niche holds the figure of a household god. His paint faded, but features still kind. A faint offering of bread lies at his feet, left by hands that will not return. To the family who tended this shrine, protection seemed certain. The gods had always provided. Nearby stands a statue of Dionysus, vines curling around his form. Grapes hang from his hand, symbols of joy and plenty. How strange it feels to stand before him now, knowing that within hours, the joy he represents will be replaced by silence and ruin. And yet, the statue remains serene. Perhaps there is comfort in that. The endurance of stone when flesh fails. The reminder that memory itself is a kind of survival. At the far end of the garden, beneath a trellis heavy with vines, the shadows shift differently. Here, centuries later, Fiorelli's plaster would capture one of the most haunting scenes of Pompeii. A family huddled together, caught in the moment of their last breath. A mother clutches her child tightly, her arms curved protectively, her head bent low. The child's form is small, curled inward against her chest, seeking comfort where none could be found. Beside them lies a man, perhaps the father, his hand outstretched toward his family, though his body is already twisted by the heat. Around them, faint impressions mark the ground. Perhaps the outline of a basket dropped in haste. Perhaps the last belongings they tried to carry. They did not die alone. The ash fell quickly here, sealing their bodies, their gestures, their love. And in that final embrace, something eternal was preserved. Not wealth, not power, but love itself, imprinted forever in the earth. As I stand here, I reflect on the phases that brought Pompeii to this silence. First came the rain of pumice and ash, stones pelting rooftops, collapsing beams, trapping those who sought shelter. The noise was deafening, the weight suffocating. Many died in those first hours, buried where they lived. Then came the pyroclastic surges, clouds of fire and gas rolling down the mountain, faster than any could flee. They moved like storms made solid, searing flesh, stealing breath. Death was instantaneous, merciful only in its swiftness. Those who survived the long night beneath falling stone were caught in the dawn's invisible fire. Their lives ended in an instant. And in the aftermath, the city was sealed. Bodies became voids in the ash. Later, when plaster was poured into those voids, the people of Pompeii returned to us, not as bones alone, but as gestures. A hand shielding a face, a mother clutching a child, a man reaching for safety. In death, they became stories, frozen between life and eternity. Now, this garden, once a place of beauty, is a tomb. The laughter of children, the splash of fountains, the rustle of vines, all have been replaced by silence, by the stillness of forms preserved in ash. The vines will wither, the fountains will dry, but the memory of that final embrace will endure. It is here, more than in the grand temples or bustling forums, that Pompeii feels most human. These were not emperors or generals, but families. People who lived ordinary lives, who loved, who feared, who hoped. And in their final moments, they held each other. As I walk slowly back toward the villa, the weight of memory presses heavier with each step. Pompeii is not merely ruins. It is a story sealed in ash, a reminder of how fragile life is, how quickly the ordinary can vanish. Before the eruption, this city thrived. Markets bustled, baths steamed, villas glittered with frescoes. People prayed, argued, feasted, dreamed. They believed in tomorrow. And yet, in a single day, all of it was ended, preserved not in continuity, but in silence. But perhaps that silence is not empty. Perhaps it speaks, across centuries, of love, of memory, of the resilience of human gesture. The people of Pompeii are gone, but their final embraces remain, reminding us of what endures when all else is lost. And so, my quiet walk through Pompeii comes to its end here, in the villa gardens, among the vines and statues, in the presence of those whose last moments became eternal. Rest easy, friends. The rabbit hole of time holds many more slow steps. Until we meet again, Silas is signing off.